back, everyone, to Climate Conversations on our podcast. My name is Jabin, and I'm here with
Victoria.
And here on our show, Climate Conversations, we discuss and learn topics based on environmental and climate change related issues and changes, spreading the word on how to make the world a better place.
That's right.
So before we get started, how was your day, Victoria?
You know what? My day was good. We got our third dose.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody else to get their third dose.
Yes. Does it hurt right now?
Right now it doesn't hurt, but before it did a little bit,
Oh yeah, mine didn't really hurt. I don't know. It just felt like a little poke.
Yeah, it was fast, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
Hopefully, I don't get feel any side effects. Cause I did it for my first 2 doses. I know you did for your second dose or something.
Yeah, for my second one.
Yeah.
I was pretty sick, pretty bad. But yeah, we have school tomorrow, so hopefully no bad
That
stuff.
happens.
Yeah. So today on our show, we will be speaking to Isabelle Sain about fashion revolution and how the fashion industry can better the environment. Isabella, would you like to introduce yourself?
So pronouns are she, her. I am an artist, designer, but also researcher and educator in the sustainable fashion realm. And I am currently volunteering with Fashion Revolution and leading a team for Fashion Revolution Toronto.
That's great. Already, I'm loving the scarf you have on. It's very fashionable.
It is.
So let's get started off with our first question. So what is the fashion revolution?
Yeah, the Fashion Revolution is an organization. It's international and a global movement that started just after the Bangladesh factory collapse. So yeah, it started just after that, which was in 2013, and it was basically a movement to work towards educating, but also calling the fashion industry to work on the issues that it has, which are social, environmental, and there's a whole bunch of issues that work within these intersections, but I can get into more detail about them.
So I was just curious, what happened in the Bangladesh clash?
Yeah, so in the Bangladesh collapse, a factory full of garment workers were in there, and because of the lack of regulation and globalization, there is a lot that we don't know about the fashion industry. It's often put under the veil, and basically because the building wasn't up to code, and there was a lot of mismanagement, the factory collapsed and a lot of people died and got hurt, and the whole community.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. Community has been affected by it, and it has really caused, you could say, an uprising to demand workers' rights, fair pay, fair wages, and also to address the problem of this lack of transparency within the industry.
Right.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. Factory workers, they're really they really do some hard work.
Yeah.
And and hearing about a factory collapse while they're working, that just means I just really wonder what kind of conditions they're being put through to be working in a building like that where it could collapse.
Yeah.
It must be really poor conditions.
And people lost their jobs and everything.
Very horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not only the physical conditions, it's also the emotional conditions. These factory workers are tormented, they're abused, they're sometimes even sexually assaulted, and they go through a lot, and it's long hours and it's hard work. It's not an easy job, and they don't get even treated fairly doing this job. And a lot of the times us in the global north don't even understand or know about these conditions or these realities of garment workers.
That's true. We don't. We just see our clothes and we're just thankful that they're there for us, you know,
Yeah.
at such low prices.
And like thinking about it, like when I go to the malls and see like where it's made from, a lot of the clothes like on the racks are made from Bangladesh.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Bangladesh, China, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, like it's interesting that you guys even look at your tags, because I think that's such an important habit to get into, just to see like where your clothes are made and being critical of like where they are made, and thinking about like who did make my clothes. And that's a big campaign that goes on with Fashion Revolution, is the hashtag who made my clothes and hashtag pay your workers and demand a living wage. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack within that social aspect of the fashion industry.
So in April, you guys have Fashion Revolution Week. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So every April, Fashion Revolution, the global but also the local teams, put on a week in April to, you know, not only bring awareness to the industry's issues and how it was built on exploitation of land and labor, but also to just, you know, understand that there is a lot more work to be done, and to kind of mobilize a group or mobilize a community to, for example, this week is about money, power, and fashion. So we're demanding living wages for garment workers. So there's just different things, and each week has a theme, like each year has a theme. And so, yeah, and it just brings, it kind of is a time where a lot of sustainable fashion leaders and advocates can come together and collaborate and really find solutions to some of these issues, or demand these solutions in place.
So like what would you say is like the fashion revolution's main like goal that they want to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a difficult question, because I mean, there's so many different aspects to the industry that's wrong, but I think for this year, if I can like hone in on just what we're talking about this year, I think it would be demanding a living wage. And there was an article that recently came out talking about how living wages could help solve fashion's climate crisis. So basically it was discussing how the fashion industry has these multiple intersectional issues that go beyond just one sector. And one of the ways that we can solve the climate crisis or the ecological crisis that fashion has is to put in living wages for all garment workers. And what I guess you can say the argument is by putting in a living wage, it makes sure that companies can't overproduce, because they are now giving the wages to the workers. And also it also means that the power at the top, the people that really dominate these spaces and really perpetuate the climate crisis and are working within these systems of oppression, don't get the large paychecks they do. It goes back to the workers and the people who actually put in the work, and the ones who were exploited this whole time. So I think that's one of their main goals for this year. I mean, their overarching goal is to just make sure that people are questioning the fashion industry and demanding transparency within the industry, and just wanting more people to understand the different connections that fashion has within our lives, because it's such a dominant cultural power that we have. So yeah, just seeing how we are all interconnected within this one thing, being the fashion industry, but also demanding that we should all have equal rights within this industry, and none of us should be exploited within it.
It's very true. So just going back on what you said about the environmental impacts of the overproduction in the fast fashion industry, what are some other things part of like the fast fashion industry that you think is having a negative impact on the climate or the environment?
Yeah, so much. I think, if we break up a cycle of a t-shirt, for example, there is so many ways that it flows through the supply chain. For example, the cotton. So if we look at the pre-production of harvesting the cotton, growing the cotton, also processing the cotton into an actual fiber, there's a lot of work involved, and there's a lot of chemicals involved, and there's a lot of water involved, and all of these things are damaging the land that we are producing on. So for example, cotton, and how much cotton we are needing to make up fast fashion's demands is crazy amounts. We are taking up so much land, and it's causing droughts. It's causing a lot of health issues for workers who are harvesting this cotton because they're being exposed to pesticides. So there's a lot there with connection to land, but it's also, if you go further down the line, some of the production facilities are still using coal and fossil fuels, and that's a big thing right now. And Stand Up Earth, another organization, is working to take fossil fuels out of the fashion industry and find other ways to produce. And remember, the rate that we're producing at and the rate that fast fashion is going at, with weekly runs and weekly collections dropping, it's at such a large scale that the earth can't keep up, the garment workers can't keep up, nobody can keep up.
So what can someone do to like better help the environment in like context of fashion? Like, would we buy like cheaper clothes? Would we like, what can we improve this problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think this question is always so interesting because you as a citizen, but also as a consumer, do have a lot of power. But it also shouldn't just be up to the consumer.
Right.
Put in these solutions, really. So I think the first thing is stop buying fast fashion. And that's a hard one. But I urge people to buy secondhand or mend what you already have, because those are two very great ways that we can stop perpetuating this cycle. And if the consumer shows these companies that we don't want these clothes that are exploiting people and harming the earth and built off the exploitation of land and labor, then we can then that is showing them that we are demanding something better of them. So that's the first thing. So stop buying fast fashion, mend your clothes, take care of your clothes, but also you can buy secondhand if you do have to buy something. Another thing that I would say is through social media, there's a lot of companies that continue to greenwash and continue to perpetuate harm, and I think it's done through social media, and they do it very well on social media. So I would say do either like a social media campaign where you flood their Instagram comments and just demand something from them. You could also email elected officials and either demand that we should be supporting global garment workers, because that is something that we can be doing. And just demand legislation in place to protect garment workers, protect the land that these garments are being made on, and protect the communities that the fashion industry is harming. So there's a lot to do, because the fashion industry is interconnected in all these different systems, and there's so much to be done, really. But like I said, it's not just up to the consumer, although we are a big part of it. It's also up to our elected officials and also these big brands.
Yeah.
That's very true. Because honestly, the consumer, what seems easy to us, what seems cheap to us, what seems most easily accessible to us, they're obviously going to go for that, right? It's pretty hard to stop the consumer from buying, because not all of us have control over our purchasing power. Only like a lot of us only have this amount of money that we could spend on clothes, and everybody wants to get the bang for their buck. So that's why like fast fashion is such a common thing, and people like lean towards buying from fast fashion.
Yeah. And also like how we can kind of like improve on like based on the environment, is like hand-me-downs, like your siblings,
Honestly, yeah,
just like reuse clothes.
there's a lot of stigma like surrounding secondhand clothing.
Thrifting,
There is,
right,
thrifting. I'm glad that thrifting is like
becoming kind of like a trend.
People are kind of losing the stigma around it. Get like incorporating fashion styles that like go along with, I guess, older fashion styles. So you can thrift for clothes that people have worn in like earlier years and still look fashionable. So, I think thrifting is like becoming more popular is a really good thing.
And the other day I seen something on like YouTube where this girl, she had this app where you can buy like digital clothes.
Digital clothes?
Yeah, digital clothes. It was crazy because she would like check them out. It was like a filter, and like when you take like an Instagram photo, you like send it to the company, and then they make like your clothes, and it looks so real. And people are like saying, this is like a good kind of like concept, because like first you're like not wasting a lot of fabric, not wasting a lot of materials, and like you can wear them like once just for the photo. So it was kind of crazy because like everything's like becoming digital.
Oh wait, that's actually crazy.
Yeah, and I've seen like some of the photos. It literally looks like clothes, and like they got like the motion of like it was like a little video too. They got like the little motion of like the clothes flapping around. Oh my god,
that's insane.
Yeah, I've seen that recently pop up too. It's really interesting how like fashion and now digital fashion is coming into play. It's so interesting.
I mean, that is one way to kind of like better the environment with fashion.
Kind of, but at the same time, we have to think of the effects, like of using like phones or like electronic devices.
Like
that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
So, what would an ideal new fashion system to you look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a regenerative, restorative, and revolutionary fashion system is what we should be looking towards. And what I mean by that is we should be thinking about how much we are making, how much we are consuming, and also understand the harm that we're doing to the land. So if we're harming a community where, for example, in Bangladesh, where it's a big fashion production hub. And so we are going into these communities and, putting ourselves onto them and really exploiting their people and their land. And they didn't necessarily ask for that. So we have to give back to the community, but also let them have agency to restore it and restore their practices and their ways of making, rather than we put a system on them. And when I talk about regenerative, I'm talking about our farming systems and how we are really, again, taking up land to farm and to create these mass amounts of fibers, whether they be cotton or flax, which is linen, or even the land we're taking up to make these huge production facilities. And something else that comes to mind actually is our dyeing practices. So the wastewater from these toxic dyes are being leaked into these communities. So we need to find solutions of, we can't necessarily stop dyeing practices, but we can stop the way it's leaking into communities and the toxicity of these dyeing practices. So I think we need to look at the whole system in general, and we need to look at the entire supply chain and reconnect these broken links, because the fashion system, or the supply chain, you can even say, is disjointed. For example, the sweater I have on now, I don't know the person who made it. I don't know what conditions they were in. And I also don't know the entire contents of the fiber. I don't know if there is a toxic dye that went into making this sweater.
Right.
So I think we need to communicate better between the different supply chain actors. We also need to find better ways to communicate with the consumer. And through that, I hope that we can, build this new fashion system that is regenerative and restorative and revolutionary. Because the way that it's going at right now, it's perpetuating a climate crisis, and the people on the front lines of the climate crisis are the ones who are being exploited also by the fashion industry. And it's a lot. It's gonna take a lot, and we have to look at it from a wider lens and a wider perspective, and then zone in on these different solutions.
Yeah, I mean, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think people realize, like, how you just said, how your sweater, you don't know what it's been through, what fabric they use. But I think, like, the first step should be, like, kind of like spreading awareness to people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mean, it's true. We need transparency. We need to know what's going on within the system, and also need to understand, so we can, if we do see something and we're being tempted by it, because it is always around us, we can just be critical and be like, do you think that was made by properly treated workers? And do you think it has harmful chemicals or dyes? Or was there anyone harmed in the process of making this sweater, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, that just, like, opens, like, a new perspective when I go shopping now, because, like, usually when you just go to the mall, it's either you say, like, oh, like, you see people, does this look good on me, or, like, what's the price? Like, that's, like, what mostly.
Yeah, it's always what's the price. That's why like fast fashion is so popular. People don't realize, like, it's so cheap because the workers are being exploited,
and just, like, how
so they can get it for
exactly
the environment.
Yeah, it's so true. There are cheap prices, and so you have to be critical of that price and be like, is a $10 shirt really $10?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Really, it takes hours to make, so they're obviously not getting paid properly if it's only being sold for $10. So yeah, a lot to think about, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there
Thank you so much.
is there
Isabel.
anything else you would like to tell the viewers or let anyone know about Fast Revolution?
Yeah, I guess just stay involved in the fashion revolution sphere and realm. There is a lot going on within Fashion Revolution. April 18th to the 24th is Fashion Revolution Week, and you can get involved through fashionrevolution.org. You can follow them on Instagram, and just follow just different sustainable fashion advocates. One that I would direct you to is Asha Barber. She is an amazing advocate for the sustainable fashion sphere, and she really goes into depth about the intersectionalities of the fashion industry and how it was built off of the exploitation of land and labor and communities. And also, she is a Black woman who is advocating for this industry to get better, and she talks about fast fashion. So if you are interested in learning more about fast fashion, you can check her out. And she actually just recently came out with a book called Consumed, which I encourage you to read, because it goes into this idea of how we are always told to consume and how that's one of our main issues within this industry. Another resource I would direct you to is Slow Factory, which is basically an organization, and they work at these intersectionalities of the fashion industry as well, but they go beyond that too and see how the industry is interconnected and how there's different issues within these systems of oppression that need to be addressed. And they're also really great thing to follow to see what they're doing. And
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Isabelle.
Really great. Yes.
Yeah, no worries.
That was very educational to
Mhm.
learn about the what happens in the fast fashion industry and just learning about fast fashion revolution. Oh, I had a question. Is fashion revolution solely a social media movement?
No, it's actually a entire organization that has different teams all over the world, and they do in-person events, they do virtual events, but basically it's an organization that works at different areas of the fashion industry, and their main thing, I would say, is through education and storytelling. So they work within those realms, to get solutions in place. So I think a lot of their work right now is through social media and virtually, but no, their stuff is worldwide, and it could be on the ground, like on the front lines protesting, or it could also be through a letter writing campaign to local officials. It's really just a movement.
Okay.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you, Isabelle.
Yeah, thank
I
you
learned
so
a lot
much.
today
Me
about
too.
fast fashion.
I'm glad. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but thank you so much for having me. And I encourage anyone listening to continue their research and continue their learning, because things change every day, and it's a process.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Yes, thank you for
Truly.
coming on.
Thank you. I had a pleasure speaking with you both.
So did we.
Bye.
So I think that was a great conversation. I hope the viewers learned a lot about fashion revolution. I mean, I know I did. And it was really interesting. She kind of opened my eyes in a bit, because when she was oh, my sweater, I have to think about oh, where did it come from, what chemicals were used, and I'm just wow, I need to start thinking about that.
Right, because fast fashion is really something an issue that youth are involved in too, because when we start getting jobs and start looking to buy clothes and stuff, obviously we want to buy the cheapest items we can find. You know, the cheap and looks good,
And just,
whatever,
like,
whatnot. Yeah.
looking around, everyone is thinking the same thing too.
Exactly. And people kind of just like ignore the fact that this might not come from the greatest of places. And the people who make these clothes, I don't even know if people think about who actually makes their clothes. You know, hearing about the Bangladesh like factory collapse, I feel like that's like really important to talk about. You know, the exploitation of factory workers. I'm really glad she like said something about that and is like working on this movement with fashion revolution to help spread awareness about this, because I really do think it's an important topic.
Yeah, I mean, same. I like how we kind of have to know a little bit about what led her to make that, to have the revolution.
Right, and I'm kind of seeing a trend with like a lot of the environmental issues we talk about. Like it's like a whole chain. Like it's like a chain. Like there's like so many ways it's negatively affecting the environment. You know, like it's not just like overproduction. It's even just like the dyes that are being let out into like the water streams and stuff, and you know, it's just like there's so many issues that are like just happening because of
like at first I was like, how does like clothes kind of like relate to the environment, and then I was like, oh my god, like,
there's like so many ways that it's negatively impacting the environment.
And like when you waste, like when you just like throw out your clothes, like I don't realize that can really impact stuff. But yeah, anyways, that was all for our show today. Hope to see you next week on Climate Conversations. Bye!
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out all of our social media platforms. For more information, check out our website.